What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Sports Talk on Tap podcast. We're here. You can find daily videos Monday through Friday covering all the four major sports leagues, whether it be MLB, NFL, NHL, or NBA, games, news, highlights, all that fun stuff. And today we got a full-packed episode for baseball. I'm Nick. Obviously, we had our big weekend series, and there was obviously a lot to be highlighted. And we also obviously have the trade deadline approaching where, teams are starting to make moves, I believe. It officially ends at like 5 p.m. Tuesday or some shit like that. So should be fun. Obviously, jam-packed schedule like we talked about, games to do and then trades to talk about. Some of the trades already teams starting to make moves. And these next 2 days will obviously be crazy packed, hopefully. Hopefully, for our teams too, Nick. But I also have some disappointing, Twins news. To bring up, regarding trade talks, no injuries, thankfully, again. But, with that being said, overall, the weekend series concluded. And Nick, how are we feeling?
Speaking as a Red Sox fan, I know as a Twins fan, you're probably pretty happy with, the weekend. As a Red Sox fan, I'm probably more on the pessimistic side of I think the Red Sox are on the brink of their season going down the drain within the next week and a half if they don't fix it like now. They won game 1 against the Yankees. Like, it was a great baseball game. Game 2, Kenley's on the mound, there was a runner on second, 2 strikes, up by 1. It was Trent Grisham, who's not a good hitter this year, gives up the lead. Then the Yankees, score 3 in the 10th, and Red Sox blow that game. That was a great baseball game, but a game the Red Sox 1,000% should have won. They were hitting the ball over the place, and just the pitching couldn't keep up, which has been the story. Mm-hmm. And then yesterday, they kind of just Tanner Houck got beat up, bullpen got beat up, Carlos Rodon pitched good. So, as a Red Sox fan, I was nervous going into that series with how the pitching was going, and now, I mean, you're getting a Mariners team who isn't hitting great, but with how good their pitching is, and how your pitching's going, this could be a sweep. But
I don't know about that because the Mariners will have a game where they can't score any runs. But
you might be right. But just with how the Red Sox have pitched since pretty much the All-Star break, it's been we saw the Rockies put up 20.
Tanner Houck
in Colorado, but it's the Rockies, man.
I don't think Tanner Houck pitched bad yesterday. It wasn't
it's the getting off to, it's the 3 runs in the first inning. It happened yesterday and the day before where they gave up 3 runs in the first. It's like the pitching, I always say the pitching is going to set the tone. And when you put your team down 3 runs immediately, that kind of sets the tone for the offense is okay, we have to score 10 runs to win.
Yeah, no, just an inefficient night. Obviously, 6 innings, 4 runs, only 3 earned, but only 2 strikeouts to 4 walks. So, yeah, definitely. He hasn't had his best stuff since the All-Star break. Obviously, the All-Star game got beat up. And then I think, what was it, against the Rockies or something? His first start back took a nasty beating. But, with that being said, this series against them and the Mariners will be exciting to watch at the end. Or, may not be the most pleasant baseball, but should be some close games. And this is going to be a huge series, approaching the trade deadline where they need to win, 2 out of 3 in this series, I believe.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
So that'll be fun. But also, yeah, shout out the Twins taking 2 out of 3 from the Tigers. Royce Lewis homered back in, I believe it was Saturday against Screwball. So, he's looking good. And obviously, if I were to do a player of the week, Bailey Ober yesterday, 8 innings, 1 hit allowed, 11 strikeouts. Arguably game 1 starter in the wild card game. Some could argue.
He's been having a career year.
That'd be very interesting. But he was a guy last year that started game 1 in the ALDS of the Astros. So I don't really know if it's that surprising. But, should be very interesting. But obviously you want to take 2 out of 3 against your division rival. But I also have some bad news with the Twins because where there's good, there's bad. The ownership came out and said, after cutting $35 million payroll after last season, they basically came out and said, or there's just been rumors that they can't trade with anyone unless like the money is close to matching. So basically, I don't really think they're going to get any better, or at the end of the day, they're going to have to do something where it's like, if I'm not really sure like how the contracts were to make, but if Evaldi makes this amount, you would need to let go of like a Max Kepler, which would be very,
Mm-hmm.
difficult. I mean, just for a Twins fan, and or one of these big players like Matt Wallner, one of the bigger, prospect guys go, and I just don't know. But at the end of the day, it's also like the best team in baseball is like the Guardians, and the Twins are only like 3.5, 4 games out of that. So it's like or the Dodgers, or sorry, the Phillies, whatever. But even then, Phillies are like struggling now. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Guardians. So like the window is so wide open. It's like I don't know if you do it, but like at the same time, like it's gonna be very interesting just to see what they do if they stand put or make a move and let go of one of their big players like Kepler to get some pitching like they need.
Yeah, it's very dependent on if the Twins want to go for it this year because, like you just said, the whole money like if they want a team to pay for their player's contract, the Twins are gonna have to kick in something big, whether that's like one of their top prospects, a top player in the MLB, and that's just tough to do when you're trying to win. It would like
Yeah.
maybe like a Walker Jenkins, but that's for like somebody big.
No, they would never give him up. I don't think.
Because
No.
I think he's a top 10 prospect right now
Yeah.
in the MLB. So
Yeah. No, I wouldn't. I could never do that. But if you were to move Max Kepler, it better be for something good because I think they're looking maybe at like not like in. I don't think we're gonna get Evaldi mainly because obviously everyone could use an Evaldi, but like in a series you want like 3 to 4 reliable starting pitching, and I think Bailey Ober, the way Pablo's looked, either way, if he didn't look great, I'd still trust him. Bailey, Pablo, Joe Ryan, those are a great 3, and then Simeon Richardson I think could be your 4th. So if you're trading away one of your good bats, like it better be like I don't know for a really good pitcher like Evaldi because I'm not giving it up for a guy that's going to be like our 5th starter to replace Chris Paddock's
right,
role. Like, I'm all set with that. I'd rather just do the bullpen
right.
instead kind of
No, you make a
situation.
good point because in 7-game series, it's usually a 4-man rotation. So
Yeah,
if the Twins are going to go for a guy that's a starter, it's probably going to be like a 2 or 3, which is a big
yeah,
asking price. But
yeah. Because I don't know, but I'm like Bailey, Pablo, Joe Ryan. Like I all trust, and Bailey's had a career year, and Pablo's I think bounced back really well the second half to start. But we'll see. It's all going to come down to Tuesday what they think. But should be very fun. Also, with that being said, though, the Cubs picked up 2 out of 3 from the Royals. So despite the Red Sox having losing 2 out of 3 and the Twins winning 2 out of 3, both teams stayed the same or gained a couple separation from the Royals. So big series win for the Cubs.
yeah, they desperately needed something to go their way. They just made a big trade yesterday for Isaac Paredes too, so
Yep.
they're trying to get some bats into that lineup. Their
You see
pitching
the
has been okay. What were you saying? Go ahead.
You see the video of the guy that got traded, Morel from the Cubs. Just got traded mid-game, so he's just kind of walking off, high five
Yeah,
the team, giving some
yeah,
hugs. Really is baseball, but yeah, obviously that's a big trade for the Cubs. They're getting Isaac Paredes, who I believe was an All-Star this year.
yep. He's a 300 hitter. He's a pretty solid defender, but it's kind of just going to bolster that lineup a little bit that needed some help because they've got some guys struggling. And I'm surprised the Cubs more so weren't looking at bullpen because that's been their real issue. That's the reason they're below
Yeah,
500. They're just blowing all these games. But maybe another bat is what they think they need, and it's I don't know. I'm surprised the Cubs are buying, but Morel this year really he wasn't hitting, so it's not like they're losing out on like some crazy good hitter. It's more so
Yeah.
like it's his young factor that I think is what had his trade stock kind of high, and the Rays are selling.
Maybe
So
maybe some of these Cubs guys just know they're getting fired, so they're like, screw it, we'll try and save our jobs and just trade all we can to get some players back. That could also be some of the other things. But speaking of trades, obviously one of the bigger ones over the weekend, definitely one of the more unexpected ones because I didn't really know if he was on the block, but given Miami's awful season, it doesn't surprise me. The New York Yankees get Chaz Chisholm from the Miami Marlins. He made his debut against the Red Sox in this weekend series. So overall, Yankees got a really talented player that kind of has never lived up to that hype, but very flashy. And I think he can do something there. I honestly liked that acquisition as for the Yankees just to get some lineup depth because it's really become a concern. You know, excluding from this Fenway series, their lineup depth after Soto and Judge kind of really has fallen off in production. And just getting a guy like that to hit in the middle of the order, I think, can go a long way.
hmm when I first saw that trade too, I was like, I don't know if I like that because, like you just said, the Yankees have almost no production outside of Judge and Soto, but the Yankees, the only like top prospect they gave up was like the Yankees number 20th prospect. So
Yeah.
they really didn't give up much for a guy that has, pretty good upside. He's a young, like you said, flashy player, can play anywhere on defense, has power, has speed. It's really stuff that the Yankees kind of need. So I don't mind it. I would say it's like a B minus if I were to, give it a grade. I'd give it probably a B minus. But if he
Yeah.
hits 220 for the rest of the year, hits like 3 or 4 home runs, Yankees fans are going to be livid because it would just be more of the same for them, and I
Yeah.
wouldn't be
And then
surprised if that happens, but you never know.
we briefly talked about the Randy Rosarena trade, but I think, any lineup depth will help to Seattle. And I
Yeah.
think he's obviously been a guy that can hit in the playoffs, can go on some insane runs, and was having a down year, but has kind of bounced back from like a really rough start. We were saying 170, but the power was still there. So I think they bought at the best time to get him at probably his worst because overall he's a guy that can hit for average and hit for power. And I do think, he's going to fit well there for their home stretch run to, obviously make the playoffs and help out that pitching staff.
I definitely agree with that one. They bought low for Randy, which is like I think a really good move for them. So it's like they didn't have to pay much, and if he all of a sudden turns it around in Seattle, they know he can hit home runs, but they also know, like you just said, he can hit for average. He's a pretty solid defender. So I think that was a good deal for them, but I still think, and I've seen, as the trade deadline is approaching, I've seen more and more rumors about what I talked about earlier this year with Vladdy Guerrero being like the number one candidate for them. It would cost a
Mm-hmm.
ton because of how good a year Vladdy's having, but the Blue Jays are in sell mode, so that's leverage for Seattle. It's like if you don't want to pay this guy and you're just going to let him walk for nothing next year, let him because we'll pay him next year. So I'll
That'll
be
be
very curious to see if
definitely the
Vladdy gets
highlight.
moved.
Might have to do a live stream if that happens. Red Sox. Nick, are you satisfied if they just were to make the only James Paxton move for their trade deadline acquisitions?
I would not. I know they got Danny Jansen the other day too, and he played last night. He actually had a pretty good game, but no, the Red Sox definitely need to either add another starter, add a bigger bat than Danny Jansen, who's hitting like 215.
Mm-hmm.
Paxton's like the fifth rotation guy. That's what they got him for, is because they don't have like a actual fifth starter. Like it's kind of just been a revolving door with either injuries or guys pitching bad. So he's going to fill that role, but that's not going to be what saves your season. You either need to get another bullpen guy, a starter, which I think is going to be more important, or a right-handed bat. Like one of those three, and it can't be some cheapo like bottom of the lineup guy who you're just getting to so you can tell the fans you traded for somebody. Like, it's got to be something big. If you're going for it this year, it's got to be something big. Because all these teams around you are making moves.
Yeah, speaking of moves, their rival AL East Baltimore Orioles acquire Zach Eflin just to get some pitching depth, solid 4-5 guy in that rotation. Obviously, they bought their ace Corbin Burns last offseason, and now they're looking to just get some regular season because they haven't actually had like the regular season they've had last year, but they're still in contention, for one of the best teams in baseball, and a team that has really high expectations, heading into the second half of the season and entering playoffs, which they'll obviously be in. But speaking of the Marlins trading, I think, Nick, it's only fair if we were to mention players or player of the weekends. Miami Marlins rookie Xavier Edwards hits for the cycle, only the second Marlin to ever do that. And despite that, they still, I believe, lost 6-2 to the Brewers. So, but shout out Xavier Edwards, going to take full advantage now of the opportunity now that there's a lot of time for playing room. When they dealt arguably their two best players in Luis Ariz really early into the season, and then Jazz Chisholm to follow. So, very disappointing year for the Marlins, but hopefully their future can be bright with guys like this.
Yeah, it's been a disaster year for the Marlins. As we've both talked about many times, it's pretty much since they dealt Ariz, they kind of sent the message to the league that they're done, they give up. Which
that was like I feel like we did that.
It was like the first month of the year,
Yeah.
Like teams have turned it around with worse records. The Mets were 10 games under 500 at that point, and they turned it around. So it's kind of just I know.
Yeah, I don't think the Marlins were going anywhere, but if they kept their full team for a whole year, they could have won like 70 games. I don't know though. They had like 86. It was the year before with Luis Ariz having like a 400 season like throughout July, and this guy's hitting. But it is what it is. Overall though, a year that cannot be fixed, and as you see at the wins right there, what is that, 39 and 67? Just
39 and 67. I just know the White Sox. I think the White Sox are like on a 13-game losing streak. They haven't
their
won.
Second 14-game losing streak of the season. Shout out the White Sox.
27 and 81 is just.
They are insanely good for what they're trying to do. Garrett Crochet, still a name out there.
He's a guy that's been floating around Baltimore too. I don't know if they're going to get him now that they've gotten Eflin and Hayes, but they have the prospect.
They do. Might have to switch up our power rankings of World Series.
I mean,
but I know the Phillies want to make a lot of moves.
Yeah, we talk about how bad the Yankees have been, but the Orioles have been like pretty much just as bad the past few weeks.
No, I think the Yankees are just a bigger market, and we
that's
them.
Exactly.
But no, when we've done our thing or like our week or like middle of the week, standing check-ins, it's like we always say, like, whenever the Yankees are going bad, so are the Orioles, so are the Red Sox. But whenever the Yankees are going good, Baltimore will be good enough just to keep that 2-game lead, and the Red Sox will be good enough just to hang a couple games right behind that. So it's kind of been like the same. It's been really weird. So when these teams are in hot stretches, they're in hot stretches, and when they're in cold stretches, they're in cold stretches all together. But that's also bad for a team like the Red Sox looking to make up some ground.
Right.
But they have a chance going against a playoff team like Seattle. This will be a great test to face, a real pitching test. Is this offense good enough, and can just the pitching be good enough to take advantage of a really still, despite we both like in the Randy Rosarena trade, can they just be good enough to get it done against a middle of the pack, very below average offense. With that being said, should be a fun series. I believe I believe my Twins go on the road to play the Red Hot Mets, so that's also I think another series starting today that could be series of the week. We got Yankees Phillies. That's gonna be great. Braves Brewers. That's gonna be great. Cubs Reds. huge playoff implications just to stay in the race. And obviously, yeah, Yankees, Phillies tight. Paul Skeens pitches tonight. So for anyone watching that, that should be fun. The Rangers, still making their push against the Cardinals. I'm expecting that series to be really good as well. So, Nick, we got a lot of great series to start our week off with.
Yep. We could see a lot of, fluctuation in the wild card races. So that's always exciting to look forward to.
Yeah. So with that being said, though, should be fun. I believe we also have a doubleheader for some team. I forget, but that'll be fun as well. So doubleheader baseball today. A lot of great series, but we'll kind of get into it as it goes along. Yeah, Blue Jays Orioles is the doubleheader. And speaking of that, we'll see Zach Eflin's debut today, so that'll be fun. But as always, let us know in the comments what you guys thought of the trade deadline so far. Who's been the biggest winner, maybe the biggest loser? We're just curious to get your guys' thoughts, but should be a lot of moves that we'll cover over the next couple of days, and maybe a pissed off Red Sox or Twins fan. Who knows? But with that being said, as always, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.